What if I told you that the greatest social skill you'll ever develop isn't charm or wit or confidence, but the ability to master yourself? Because here's the truth: if you can't rule over your own emotions, you'll be ruled by everyone else's. And that is slavery. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago. They saw what most of us still refuse to admit. The most dangerous battles are not fought in courts or marketplaces or on the battlefield. They are fought in the mind. You win those battles, you gain peace. You lose them, and you become a puppet to rage, envy, fear, and every impulse that drags you off course. So the question is, do you want to live as a master or as a slave? We all feel the pull of anger when insulted, of jealousy when outshined, of despair when life turns brutal. But Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Notice what he's saying. It isn't just about inner peace or private meditation. It's about strength, about resilience, about the power to stand in the chaos of society and not be broken by it. This is the most critical social skill, emotional self-mastery, because without it, every other skill, speaking, persuading, even leading, falls apart the moment pressure rises. Seneca wrote, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary." He wasn't just warning us about anxiety. He was teaching us that half of human misery comes from our own ungoverned thoughts, our uncontrolled stories. We imagine insults, rehearse humiliations, replay tragedies, and in doing so, we multiply our pain. But if we can silence that storm inside, suddenly we can face people as they are, not as our fears paint them. That's where power begins. Think of Epictetus. He began life as a slave, beaten so badly his leg was permanently crippled. Yet he rose to become one of the most respected philosophers in history. How? He understood that while his master could chain his body, no one could chain his mind. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, he said. This is the ultimate freedom and the ultimate social weapon. Imagine walking into a room and knowing no insult can pierce you, no flattery can corrupt you, no rejection can wound you. You move like stone through fire. People sense it. They trust it. They're drawn to it, even if they can't explain why. That's the difference between someone who crumbles under pressure and someone who becomes unshakable. And here's the paradox. When you stop chasing control over others, you finally gain influence over them. Because you've mastered the one thing nobody else can, yourself. Let's be honest, most of us are weak in this regard. We lash out when slighted. We drown ourselves in envy when someone else wins. We chase distractions because we can't sit alone with our own thoughts. And the world, clever as it is, knows how to profit from this weakness. Politicians stir outrage to gain power. Advertisers provoke desire to sell us what we don't need. Strangers on the internet provoke our rage just to feed their own emptiness. And every time we take the bait, we hand over our freedom. The Stoics were not cold or detached as many imagine. They were warriors of the mind. They trained daily, just as soldiers train with the sword, so that when life struck, when insults came, when death arrived, when fortune turned, they could remain calm, deliberate, alive. Epictetus told his students to rehearse adversity, to imagine loss, exile, poverty, even death, so that when it came, they would not be shattered. This wasn't pessimism, it was armor. By facing the worst in thought, they became ready to face anything in life. Here's what this means for us. Every social interaction is a test. Every conflict, every rejection, every insult, an opportunity to train the mind. The untrained man erupts in rage, or collapses in despair, or twists himself into knots trying to please others. The trained Stoic holds steady. He asks, is this within my control? If not, why waste myself fighting it? Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man on earth, yet he repeated this to himself. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Even an emperor knew that the real battlefield was not over thrones, but over integrity, over whether he would let circumstance dictate his soul. And think about how this applies to us. You cannot control whether people praise you or mock you. You cannot control whether fortune raises you up or strips you bare, but you can control whether you let it poison you. That choice is always yours. Modern psychology has begun to catch up with what the Stoics knew all along. Cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most effective treatments for anxiety and depression, is built on the Stoic insight that our thoughts, not external events, shape our emotions. Change the thought, and the emotion follows. The Stoics practiced this 20 centuries ago. But unlike therapy, Stoicism was never meant only for the clinic. It was meant for the battlefield of everyday life, for the markets, the Senate, the family table, the city street. It was, and still is, a way of arming ourselves against the chaos of human affairs. Now, let's talk about the darkness. Stoicism does not deny that life is brutal. People betray us. Fortune abandons us. Death comes for everyone we love, and in the end, it comes for us too. This is not something to ignore or sugarcoat. The Stoics faced it directly. Seneca wrote about the shortness of life, reminding us that we die every day. Marcus meditated on his own mortality, constantly calling death a release from the storms of life. To remember death is not morbid, it's clarifying. It strips away trivial complaints, petty envies, and leaves us asking, what will I do with the time I have left? And when you see clearly that every conversation may be your last, every moment your only one, you start to treat people differently. You stop wasting time on rage and jealousy. You stop letting petty insults drag you down. Instead, you speak the truth. You act with courage. You live in alignment with virtue. This is not detachment. It is engagement at the highest level. To face life fully, knowing it can vanish at any moment, and still choose to live with dignity. So here's the lesson we can take. The most critical social skill is not about cleverness or performance or bending others to your will. It is about mastering the storm inside yourself. Because when you master yourself, you cannot be manipulated, you cannot be broken, and you cannot be enslaved by the chaos of other people. This is why the Stoics remain relevant. Their wisdom doesn't age. We are still human, still prone to envy, rage, fear. The tools they handed us, discipline, reflection, acceptance, are just as sharp now as they were in Rome. And make no mistake, this path is not easy. To hold your tongue when you want to explode, to accept insult without retaliation, to face loss without collapsing, that requires strength most people never develop. But the reward is a kind of power that no one can take from you. We live in noisy times. Everyone wants a reaction from you. Outrage, envy, fear, desire, those are the currencies of the modern world. But a Stoic knows, if you don't control your reaction, you've already lost. So let us remember Epictetus's warning, no man is free who is not master of himself. And let us carry Marcus Aurelius's command, you have power over your mind, not outside events. This is the heart of Stoicism, the most critical skill for life, for society, for ourselves, self-control. When we master this, we become untouchable, not because the world has softened, but because we have hardened. And that is how we begin to live, not as slaves to impulse, but as free men.